All right, welcome back. Coast to Coast podcast. Me and Tori, we're here. It's Thursday nights in the NHL. Lots of games going on. I think there's 13 games or so, something
Yeah, there's a
crazy like
lot
that.
going
A lot
on.
of games going
Yeah.
on. So we're just gonna do a quick thing. Thursday seems to be one of those busy nights to do a pod. It's starting to turn out, but that's okay.
Hmm.
We can do little quick updates here and there as games and goals start going in. It'll be fun. But I think we're here on
Exactly.
episode 32, second year going. We're going strong. We're gonna be at 50 before you know it, and before you know it, we'll be at that 192 that you said we were gonna get to last year. So.
Exactly.
So how you doing,
We're on
sir?
our way.
Yeah.
Not too bad. I'm excited to I mean right now for me, you're lucky you're on the West Coast, so the game that I really want to watch is really the prime time for you. I'm waiting for the Edmonton Toronto game at 10 p.m. my time. So I'm uh I'm doing this pod. I'm gonna have a nice shower afterwards, get ready for the game, sit down, try to stay up, see how long I can last. So
That's
that's gonna be the goal. But it's nice because in the meantime, I can just kind of change the channel, and I kind of have a rule for myself that obviously I don't watch commercials. So if a commercial comes on or the period ends, that's my signal or my cue to swap to a new game,
oh, okay.
swap and watch different action.
Well, that's the
So I
problem.
kind of like, even if I just turn on and it's a couple minutes, I swap to a new game.
It
So
is a problem sometimes with the NHL. If all the games start on like the even clock, then you don't have a game to swap to because they're all going to intermissions. But luckily
they're
on night,
all in overtime at the same time.
yeah,
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 that's the thing
exactly,
I've noticed.
exactly.
Yes.
All right, all right.
Should scatter them a little bit, even like in the bubble. I mean, it's a little bit different in the bubble, but when the bubble had the games at like, what was it, 3, 6, 8, 10, or whatever the times were where it was scattered, like exactly that. Like I feel like they should do like maybe not a 6 p.m. game, but do 7:15, or 7:30, or 7:45, 8:15, like
Yeah,
whatever. Scatter them just a little bit.
a little bit, please. I'd be all for that because half the time you're going to intermission and then there's five other games on, but they're all at intermission too, and it's just like,
And like if we want to speak obviously from a selfish fan point, then yeah. But if you want to talk from like a marketing money kind of perspective, if they're all running commercials at the same time, the eyes are not seeing those commercials. You would think that you'd want
mm,
to scatter them. So like, yeah, okay, I'll change the break. Oh, I happen to go to this other game that's actually on a commercial. It's a different commercial, but I'm seeing a commercial. Like you would think from bang for buck from marketing perspective, and from the NHL's perspective, you think you'd want to do that and not have them all at the same time. But
yeah, I'm with you. Like, let's do it. Let's get it done.
come on, NHL.
So this week we finally we talked about it last week. This week we saw finally Dubois, Lane getting traded to each other's teams. I don't know. Like I don't know if we talked about this as I think we talked about it as a possibility last
He
week.
did, and I said there's no way in hell this would happen. That's what I said.
Well,
Oh,
there.
I was wrong.
Wow. What do you think? Any first
I
impressions about this? Who do you think the winner is, and what? Like, what are your first impressions? I'll go. I can
I
lead.
think the winner of all trades are the team who gets the piece that's hardest or most difficult to obtain or get. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's not necessarily the best player in the trade. This is perfect proof of it. Like Dubois is not as good as Liney in terms of ceiling of pure skill. We know that like Liney's sniper capabilities are more elite than whatever qualities our best Dubois brings, which I would say is kind of his two-way kind of all around capabilities. So like, would you rather have a centerman that can play in all zones, or would you rather have a sniper that sometimes forgets his assignments defensively?
Personally, like when you say about getting that player that is harder to get, I think getting a 40 goal scorer in the NHL is much harder to get than a centerman that can go both ways.
What if he can't get the puck? How's he going to score 40 goals? Going to score them from the blue line? Is he going to score them from the top of the circle, behind the net,
I don't know. I think
on the
Columbus'
shot?
style of hockey's always been somewhat defensive already, so they should be able to cover what he might have been lacking before. Like Winnipeg, I know we've touched on this for pods upon pods, but starting last season, defense has always kind of been the question mark of that team, right? So having a player like Lane who has those defensive problems might be a little more prevalent, and you might notice it a bit more. Whereas if he's in a system that's a little more defensive, A, it might make him better defensively. He might pick up a thing or two, but B, those other players might be able to cover his slack a little bit better. So
yeah, and what I thought of, which I now definitely believe in, is that Columbus went after Koivu really hard,
mm-hmm.
and they signed him from Minnesota. And when they signed him, I thought it was kind of weird and random. But I also can see the connection between the Finnish GM and obviously Koivu.
Yeah.
So I feel like he may have let him in on a secret, said like, "Hey, I may end up with Laine." And it was the same thing why Winnipeg went out, or similar why Winnipeg and got Stastny. They're playmaking two-way-ish centermen, right? They're guys that can play responsibly. But what I was going to say with Columbus is that I think they really need to consider making a move here on the coach, not because Tortorella is the wrong piece. His contract's expiring. His message will get old eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's kind of left the team. I feel like there's a lot of, from the fantasy perspective, look how many shots on goal their defensemen get in Seth Jones and Werenski. They're often their highest shooting players, right? So a lot of their offense goes into the zone, they drop it back to the D shoots it on net, and then they try and bang the goal in.
Hmm.
So right now, they're now going to have to change that in back at the net style to in the ice, set up, and get ready to get the puck to Laine to shoot it in. So they're going to have to change their entire structure.
I think it has been on the change. Like, I only know this because I am a Seth Jones fantasy owner. Like, he has not been getting the opportunities as before. I haven't watched a whole lot of Columbus games, so I can't really comment too much on what's different. But I think things are different. Like, they're definitely rolling over their top lines with Dubois gone. It's going to be a little bit different. Like, Foligno's the captain of this team. He's been the longest serving captain this team's had, I believe. I don't know. Like, I think, in my personal opinion, is that Columbus came out of this trade awesome. Like, the GM did a great job. They had an asset. Like, when you have a player that pretty much is demanding a trade and is being benched during games, everyone's like, the vultures start circling, right? Like, to come back and get, even though he's on an expiring deal, to come back and get that 40 goal scorer that I touched on, I think is huge. And you touched on it too, that they're both Finnish, right? So I think part of the reason he makes this trade is that he thinks that he has a shot at signing Laine for a longer term, should it work out for them in the future here. Like, I don't know. I find that the odds of that he'll be re-signed in Columbus fairly good.
I mean, that can be a debate we can have later on, because I think I think he'll want to see what happens between now and a year from now before he even talks about it. He can't even put pen to paper until the last year anyways. So like there's time to wait. So like, I believe he's got this year and one more.
No, I think
could be wrong on that.
Dubois is the one that has 2 years, and Laine's is expiring this year.
Okay, so then I could see potentially like a 1 or 2 year extension.
Mm-hmm.
Being like,
That's
okay, let's see what you do, and then go from there. Because I think I think Columbus needs to make changes also to, again, their structure and how the structure works if they're going to commit to Laine, but obviously they're not going to do that and give away good defensemen, not give away, but move good defensemen when you're trying to change the structure. Mm-hmm. But basically, if you can re-sign Laine to like a 5, 6, whatever year deal, 4+ year deal, I think you seriously consider moving Werenski or a lesser defensive defenseman and maybe a supporting centerman or a winger. And then you let Jones become the Norris defenseman.
Yeah. Columbus also has to consider they got 2 goalies that they're not going to be able to keep both of them when it comes time. And
you've got like 2 or 3 more young kids in the minors they love too.
They're gonna have to move one. I don't think that they're done with trades, to be honest, this season. I think there's gonna be more to come. I think Columbus is really going to make a push this season. I've changed my input on where I see this team. I think they're gonna try to make a drive at a playoff run here.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to
That
see how.
division is completely up in the air, and I feel like it's going to be one of those divisions. And I think I might have even said that, like, it's going to be the team that goes out and makes the trades and improves themselves that take
Hmm.
the division, take the spot, or take a spot or two in the division. I just want to go back to the trade just because it's funny because I've been listening to a lot of radio on this, and
Yeah,
you
of
have
course.
like all the different professionals, whatever, come in and talk about it, and like you have certain people you like and dislike, and everyone likes different people and dislikes other people and whatever. It just was so interesting because like all these professionals were coming in from different places, different sports networks, different whatever, and each one all had different opinions. And
Hmm.
basically, all I came to the conclusion of is this trade was a win-win. And
Has to be.
very rarely do we see win-win trades. And
That's true.
maybe a team will win more than the other one, but a lot of times it's easier, or we try to determine who the loser is or the clear winner is now, even though
Hmm.
trades don't really work that way.
Of course.
Right now, I think we can say for now it's win-win.
Yeah.
But all I'm trying to say is that if I'm building a team and I want a centerman that I can commit that ice time to for now for a few years, I will take that any day over no matter what you give me on the wingers, even if it's an Ovechkin. I would
Oh.
I would take I would take a Malkin over an Ovechkin any day of the week.
Wow.
I would take a centerman over a winger
And
99.9
that's
times out
what's
of
great
100.
about this podcast. We can agree to disagree on that front because I would definitely take the Russian. Oh, well, I guess they're both Russian, but
That's why I use them because they're both Russian. They're
yeah,
both kind of similar-ish style players.
I would
But
take
I
yeah.
just feel like or not Minnesota, sorry, Winnipeg now. Winnipeg with Dubois and Scheifele, if they have that combo for the next 5-year window, 4-year, 5-year window, they're going to be a team in the playoffs for all of those windows, barring any injury.
They
So, like,
definitely have some crazy center depth, even on their third and
they
fourth
also have
lines.
Hellebuck, who's one
Yep.
of the best goalies in the league. Your defense is suspect, but now your centermen are coming back to help your defense, helping clear rebounds, helping back check and take loose sticks, kick loose pucks away, whatever, not kick them away, but knock them away, whatever. So like I feel like Winnipeg now also doesn't have to try and design a power play to get Lanny the puck because their strength's always been whether it's Connor, whether it's Wheeler, whether it's Scheifele, it's never been
Yep.
about who finishes it. It's about getting it done as a unit, right? So
Yep.
I think it makes them stronger, but I think it also is more marquee. It's brought a marquee factor to Columbus. Like there's now a selling factor. Not that they didn't really have it before. I mean, they did when they had Bobrovsky to an extent, but more Panarin and when they brought in Duchesne and
Yeah.
whatnot. Like
Yeah.
they had a little bit. They had Voracek a little bit before they moved him and whatnot. But Rick Nash, like it's always been that like one guy. But now they have a real image of their, especially with the Finnish GM. Like it could be their thing now. Like it could be what makes or breaks both of them,
Yeah.
right?
No, I'm excited.
Uh,
I'm excited. I think it, like you said, win-win. Both teams were in a situation where the player wasn't performing the way they needed it to, and now they're in new spots and they both got great players. So like, hopefully it
hmm.
turns around. And I think you're right. Like in this case, no matter what happens, I think it's a win-win. Because those players would not perform the way they're going to do on their new team for their old teams. So.
And the other thing that people have to keep in mind for Winnipeg specifically is Winnipeg also got Cole Perfetti in the first round last year, who his nickname is Goal Perfetti because he scores goals. He's 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 um, he's just a really good player. Like he's similar, I guess, to a Kyle Connor. He's better than Connor in terms of shooting, but like he scores goals.
Yeah.
So like you he's I wouldn't call him a Liney light because everyone thinks he's a similar player, but if you get 40 goals out of Liney, maybe you get 30 goals out of this guy. So like
Yeah.
he's coming. So really losing that 40 goal winger to have a 30 goal winger or 25 goal winger in a year and a half from now, and then also get that dynamic centerman, they can just find a way to bring in that defenseman they need. They're gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all they're missing from making a serious run. And if they get that defenseman, I will shoot them up the standings in the Northern Division as my prediction to number one.
Number one. Wow.
They need, call me crazy, but they need like a Subban or a Doughty or a, I
I
can't
call.
think of other guys
I
off
don't
the
know
top
if
of my head.
I call you crazy almost every podcast, so.
There's going to be a lot of names. I mean, maybe imagine Burns to Winnipeg. That would be the perfect fit for them since they moved on from Trouba and Bufflin. He'd be the perfect guy to try and bring that attitude, but that size back to Winnipeg, that, intimidation factor that they had for so long.
Yeah,
especially with Kane and whatever before, right?
Yeah, and just to kind of segue into that kind of issue, like we're dealing with such a short season. I'm interested to see how the trades are going to work. Like definitely with the North Division specifically, because we're seeing it with Dubois, how he's essentially has to wait 2 weeks before he plays or even meets up with his teammates due to like the Canada rule. So like, do you think these North teams are they going to be making moves earlier? Are they going to have to pay more to get these players? Like, it's so much craziness.
I think I actually mentioned that on pod or two pods ago, maybe ago. I just said like, interesting to see the balance of, this guy is worth this. It's like, yes, but then I have to wait 10 days before I can use him. So I'm paying you that value minus 6 games.
Yeah.
But then they're going to be like, well, I don't care about those 6 games.
I'm losing those 6 games too. Like, yeah, that like the team that traded him is also losing those games. So
then does that mean you go out and get early and you say, screw it, I'll take the damage on missing 6 games, but I'll get my guy now? Or does that mean you wait to the last minute and you play chicken and then deals don't get done maybe? Or does that hold up other deals? There's a lot of general managers these days I find that just want to go get their guy and make the trade happen. So I feel like there's going to be a lot more, let's make it happen. But here's the one kicker I'm going to mention. I believe this year we'll have the most number of conditional draft picks attached ever.
Okay. Maybe.
It's like he's got to play 20 games, or you got 25 games left, he's got to play 22 of them, or like 20 of them. So that way, okay, we know he's going to miss a couple games, but then you've got those 25 left. You have a leeway of a couple games. And then if he gets that for you, and then on top of that, okay, there's your 5th rounder. If he gets you 10 goals, okay, now you get a 4th rounder. If he plays, 20 games in the playoffs, which means you go, or that's too many games. You play 10 games in the playoffs, which means you go at least 2 rounds, and you get another pick. Like, I think there's going to be so many conditional picks attached to stuff this year. That's my prediction.
Yeah, for sure. So we're talking about some good GMs. You want to talk about some GMs that are not having such a good time this past week? We got 2, I guess you could say. Let's start off with good old John Chayka.
John Chayka?
Yeah.
Chayka.
So he was handed down a suspension that I guess is not just for the season, it's until the end of 2021. So I guess that means he's going to miss a bit of the beginning of next season, should he?
Assuming that season starts on time, yes.
Assuming, so yeah. So I guess it has to do with, I forget the wording. I should have written this down in preparation, but it was basically...
I think it was negative conduct
towards his team
in light of the NHL or something. Yeah, basically poor conduct to make the NHL look bad is basically what he was.
Yeah, so like I guess from what I heard other people talking about, it was GMs and have a history of kind of treating the NHL poorly, I guess, or I guess the NHL finally taking a stand against GMs doing this kind of thing. I don't know if maybe you can shed more light on that, but can't think of anything myself.
It's hard to speak on this topic because there's nothing on the record or official about why the separation happened. I might be entirely wrong on it, but my read of the situation is that the team basically wanted to tell him what to do. Basically, we're saying, nope, follow analytics on everything. He was trying to bridge the gap between some people who were all analytics versus no analytics. They were like firing all these old schooler type people, and then everything was just getting messy. And then they basically, he knew he was going to take the fall for it. And he knew that when this mess inevitably hit the fan in Arizona, he was going to be blackballed for it.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew, I feel like he felt, he had an option. Do I stay and maybe fix this, but then it collapses down on me and I potentially never get a job again?
Yeah.
Look at a guy like John Ferguson Jr. He made one trade that the Leaf fans hate him for still to this day, and that was 20 years ago.
What was the trade?
He traded Raycroft for Rask and a pick.
Oh,
So they're like, it made a couple terrible free agent signings. So there's just people still to this day that hate him. So like it could take 20 years to get another chance.
or never get a
Or
chance. Yeah.
you bail and you say, yeah, I bailed. That looks bad. But I bailed because at this point now you're having a one-on-one conversation with your next potential employer. So you can
Yeah.
disclose some more details in secrecy, right? But if my assumption or my understanding is correct, you can say exactly that. Like, look, I knew I had to get out because I was trying to build this team. I wanted to do X trade. I wanted to sign X player. They said no, I had to do this, and which would have led the team to be worse. And I wasn't just going to be the guinea pig and then take the blame for it. So I just bailed so that I can save my own reputation and, start at a 5 and try and get the job at an 8 or 9 instead of going all the way down to 0 and having to work your way slowly back up. That's how I understand the situation to be.
Yeah,
So
makes a lot of sense to me. Like,
tension is whatever, and I feel like it's them just saying, you're a good GM. We know people want you.
so we're gonna put you
After
on
doing
pause
this,
for a
you're
bit.
not. Yeah, you're not just gonna walk away and then like handpick your job. That's not what we're into.
Yeah.
So sure, you're gone. This is it. It's quiet now, but you can't do anything until this time. And then at that time, it's done. We move on.
Sounds good.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
So I see the situation.
So we have that news with the Arizona GM, and then also I think it was either today or yesterday it came out. Pittsburgh's GM Jim Rutherford. Yeah,
Correct.
I'm really bad with names sometimes. So he stepped down. He stepped down as their GM. Wow, he's been there for quite some time now. But personal reasons.
From Carolina before that.
Yeah, and he's quoted for personal reasons. I guess we don't really know what the story is. But
he has clarified it is not retirement. He is just stepping away for a short period of time.
Yeah, so he'll be back. Yeah, exactly. So this is like kind of like a different story. We have a guy who's been in the league for a long time stepping down from a team that's been at the top of the league. So now there's a vacancy in Pittsburgh. So I guess with the suspension, we know Chayka's not going there.
I mean, I've been reading some articles today on Rutherford, and like on the record, some stuff that I've seen is just basically that there's one thing on trade rumors that suggested, I mean, I guess I could get the actual source here. Basically they were saying, if I can find it later, but basically they were saying that he was about to trade Letang. That is the reported issue, was that there was a trade in place to trade Letang.
Okay.
And that he was going to be getting a different defenseman that would bring more stability on the back end, which to me makes sense. Then that's also trying to cover up the error that I already called out in their goaltending of Jari. So like often sometimes people chase their own tail. When they make a mistake, they try to do something else to cover up that mistake.
Yeah.
So like I feel like both of those have something to do with it, where they kind of said, you picked Jari, you moved Murray, you picked your guy, you didn't go out and get anyone else, so this is your guy. But then now you're going to trade our leader and one of their top point getters from the back end, double down on the defensive defenseman who I already called out as well, saying that they're going to be too slow and not being able to move the puck and that they're going to be at the bottom of the standings and all these other things. I think that they basically said, like, you know what? No, we're not giving you permission to do this. We're nixing this trade and we want you to do X or we want you to do Y or Z. And he said, no, like, do this trade or I'm done. Like, I need full power or I'm out. And they said, well, if you don't like it.
Yeah, and you would think with someone with his stature and been in the league for so long, like, yeah, he should call the shots at his point. Like, if he's being handcuffed, he can be a GM on a team that's gonna let him have free reign. So he doesn't need to be told what to do.
And somebody younger or a Chayka, like if Chayka did this, he'd never get a chance again because they'd be like, who do you think you are? You haven't proven it yet.
Yeah.
But for a guy like him, he knows it. He knows he doesn't need to be a puppet. He's beyond that. He's put the time and he's put the work in. If he's going to be a puppet, he can be a puppet in the place he wants to be, whether that's, New York, Toronto, Montreal, whatever, like not necessarily those teams, but I'm just throwing out like the top
Yeah,
attractive spots for
for
some
sure, for
older
sure.
GMs that want to, win it and walk away kind of thing. But
I'll be with you. I've been watching some Penguins. Albeit their points are doing okay so far this year.
I was
Almost
surprised when I saw the record.
don't be. It's Jeff. It's not. It's what's the word? It's inflated. Like it's not what it looks like. They've almost all their wins are come from behind in the third period, and won in overtime. Like it's. I'm worried for this team as a Penguins fan myself. Like I'm worried. I'm starting to turn my corner. This is one of the divisions at the beginning of the season. I was like 1 through 7. We know New Jersey's in the bottom, but like 1 through 7, it's like I'm starting to have a little bit more clarity on this division, and part of that is not New Jersey in the bottom. I don't think New Jersey's impressed me a bit this season so far.
Yeah, they're playing. I think they're also playing a bit above their heads a little bit though.
Maybe
their goaltending can't maintain this. There's no way.
They're due. Like they've been in the bottom for so long. They've acquired all these top picks. Like eventually, it's got to come together, right? Like that's my hope. Maybe we'll see. That's one team.
To me, there's only a couple different types of teams. There's like offensive teams. There's kind of teams that are good at everything, toolboxy teams, and then there's like shutdown defensive teams. And then once you go in those categories, if you rank them and tier them, if you're not in the top 1 or 2 of one of those 2-3 divisions, you need to be in one of those spots. So work towards, like, you need to be the best at what you do and bring that to the table to see if it works. It may not work that year. It may be an offensive year when you're a defensive team, but like if you're one of these teams that's like a second or third or fourth team in one of those groupings, chances are you're not going far in the playoffs. So like I don't kind of see what the point is. And that's kind of what I see with Pittsburgh and why off the start of the season, I was worried for them because, I mean, you got Crosby, you got Malkin, but like, what else?
They've struggled at keeping the puck out of their own net for a couple of years now, and like Crosby and Malkin are just getting older and older, right? So they can only be peak performers for so long. We might be past that, unfortunately, for them. We don't know. We'll see.
Can they trade Malkin and Crosby, or Crosby?
Something tells me this new GM that they bring in won't have the balls to do that, so I doubt it.
The only way that happens, I think, is if somebody like a Lamoriello or like somebody who says, I'm going to do this, and people will be like, all right, we'll trust you. We wouldn't do it, but like been through the fire before, so like go for it. Like, which would limit the list to like, I don't know the names off the top of my head, but probably like 4 or 5 guys tops, right?
I just feel like at the end of the day, it probably comes down to Crosby's decision. He's just that much of an icon there.
But when he just walk at that point and not get traded.
Yeah, I feel like he's his whole life is Pittsburgh now. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's like 33 or whatever, right?
I'm quite confident Crosby won't play for another team. I'm pretty confident Malkin will.
I can see that.
That's kind of how I feel. I don't know where, but like
maybe Malkin goes back to the Russian league.
Maybe. What about a team like Columbus or like a Nashville? Nashville would be perfect for a Malkin. Somebody who's just kind of missing that.
I don't think they can afford to pay another center the way they paid Duchesne.
Yeah, you'd have to. One of Duchesne or Johansson would have to come back in the trade, and then you'd probably also be getting one of Ekholm or Ellis, and then you'd probably be then talking about prospects and or picks. But still, like, I'm just
feels like a trap.
It popped into my brain. Let me actually go to the teams, and I'll quickly rattle off who I could see him with. I could see Malkin in Anaheim. I could see Malkin in Calgary. I could see Malkin in Carolina. See him in Columbus. See him in Dallas. I'd see him in Florida, depending. See him in LA. LA could make a big move. Imagine Kopitar and Malkin as their big monster with all their youth around those two, and all their youth defensemen around Doughty. That would be quite something.
Yeah.
Jersey needs some marquee. I mean, I doubt they trade interdivision, so that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, like St. Louis. St. Louis would be a big place to pick up. You could do like O'Reilly and Shen or something from Malkin Plus. All of a sudden, St. Louis lost Petriangelo, but now you get Malkin. Now you're kind of a marquee team again.
Yeah, man.
So there's a few places like
For sure. It's always a possibility. Like, I think the one thing that this Laine Dubois trade, even though it was a little bit different because they had to be traded per se, it shows that maybe blockbusters are back. Maybe. Who knows?
I think I said this not too long ago too, but I think that the GMs see the finish line as getting through expansion.
True.
Once we get through expansion, and then between that deadline and then the start of the next season will be the start of the new race. In that little window, there's going to be mountains moved. Like there's going to be massive UFA signings. There's going to be massive buyouts. Like that's the thing we have to be ready for. That it came out. It was not really supposed to come out, but it came out that at least 11 GMs of the NHL or ownership groups in the NHL said that they would kind of rather just not make the playoffs this year, assuming there's no fans, because that means that they lose that much less money, especially if they're not especially if they're a team that doesn't mean they're guaranteed to kind of make the playoffs next year too. So basically, like if they're not that good, why spend to be better and be on a fringe team? Just stay bad, don't make the playoffs, and then come back at it next year. So like it'll be interesting to see at the deadline the teams that are kind of just above the cap or being able to acquire, and then all these dead contracts like these Gabricks and stuff that are just money and not bodies and whatnot that are expiring. It'll be interesting to see how those are used, and like weaponized.
Yeah.
As from a lot of the GMs, that's it's going to be interesting, and I think there's going to be 4 or 5 of these type of trades, the Laine Dubois trades, or like the Subban Weber trades. Like I think there's going to be 3 or 4 more of those between now and the start of next season, but probably most definitely either the night. I think there's going to be one gigantic blockbuster on the night of expansion draft or the night before eve of expansion draft. Yeah, just to be like,
so close.
There's a few teams out there that are not compliant and they're not close to compliant, and it's like, do you want to lose a number 2 center that has 4 more years of control for nothing, or do you want to trade him to another team for picks? You don't have to protect picks and then let them take a weaker player and then go and sign somebody in free agency, or then turn around and be like, now we have $8 million in room. Who wants to get rid of an $8 million player at 50 cents on the dollar?
Definitely, as we get closer to expansion, we'll take a deeper look into what teams are, like you said, out of compliance and who could be at risk and whatnot. That'll definitely be a fun thing to do.
Expansion is weird because like I'm super excited about it, and like I love it because it's such a weird thing, and how the Vegas one was so unique. But that being said, like between now and then, all of what I'm saying, like there's going to be so many changes that there really is no point doing any work. Like,
no, for sure.
There's going to be so many bodies moved around and guys signed to 2-year deals that you're like, why are these guys? Oh, right, just to get them through expand, like just to make them qualify. Like, I don't know if you noticed, who was it? I think it was Chicago signed Madison Bowie. Madison Bowie was cut. He was cut by the Red Wings, and he's a right-handed defenseman, skates okay, kind of jack of all trades, master of none type guy. I thought somebody would have given him a flyer, but nobody really signed him. Nobody, I don't think, brought him into camp. And all of a sudden, Chicago signed him today to a 2-year deal. People are like, well, how can a guy that can't get a 1-year deal get a 2-year deal? That's because they're trying to make a defenseman qualify that's played, there was 150 NHL games. So like, there's still going to be unique, weird transactions like that out of left field. So like, there really is 0 point even talking about expansion until closer to.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited to do so. So it's just like, I can't wait.
You can't hold it. You can't keep it down. You can't keep it down.
Yeah. I want to do like a game and like predict to see how the roster and all that other fun stuff. So stay tuned. That will be good.
All right. That was all I had for topics. I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to touch on, or you want to go over give out our 3 stars of the past week, or really call it since the beginning of the season. That's really the only thing I have left on the agenda. I don't know what you.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
I think in the future maybe kick it off with that. I don't know, something at the top of the pod, but
yeah, I think we were just excited to get to the trade. So
yeah, for sure. So for me, when I'm looking at the top 3 stars that I awarded here, there's 2 things I kind of looked at. Which players helped get their team to the top. Like, I looked at who came out, what teams came out this season and have had great seasons so far, and like which players are like the biggest in my mind contributor possibly to being that.
Like MVPs of the week, basically.
Basically, yes. So for my 3rd star of the week, I'll start with that. Goes to Tyler Toffoli, and it's because he put up 5 goals, 3 assists, and he single-handedly took down 2 wins when he was here in Vancouver, putting up basically all those goals. It allowed Montreal to sweep their 6-game road trip without a loss, which I think is amazing. So
a regulation loss.
Without a regulation loss, sure. Without a loss, picking up points,
right.
without picking up points in 6 of their games. So I'm giving it to him. He played out of his skull, and I think
especially when Price's save percentage is under 900.
Yeah, so I did not know that part of it. So that's who I gave my 3rd star to.
Fair enough. What about your 2nd star?
So my 2nd star went to my homeboy from the Vegas Golden Knights, who came out to a 4-0 start. And I think they're 6-1-1, 5-1-1 now. I gave it to Mark Stone, who is 2 goals, 9 assists. Just basically, he is all over. Newly named captain this year of the team. Putting up 11 points. Just, he's all over. He's part of the power play 5-on-5. He's great. Defensively, he's great. He's just a workhorse. I'm a little biased in this pick because I watch him so much, I'm sure. But Vegas was at the top of the standings at this point, so that's kind of how I went with it. And number 1, I'm going to the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I think have had a great start to their season. Some people might not think so. There's a couple losses here, but I think their defense has really come along, and they're playing like a unit. I'm giving it to Mitch Marner as my number 1 star. I don't know. This seems wrong now that I'm looking at it, but 5 goals, 7 assists.
I think he has 2-game winners or 3-game winners too.
Yeah, so that's who I give my number 1 star to this week. I honestly haven't watched a whole lot of Leafs. This is just based off. I think that as a team, they're like a 1 star. They're in the 3 stars, but then looking at this guy's stats for the start of the season, he's coming off some controversy with Babcock last year, signing that huge contract. Some people might say he not have performed up to that contract last year, but damn, is he performing up to it this second.
The biggest change for me specifically on Marner is, and the biggest problem I had and why I had big questions for him this year, is last year he came out and said he wasn't engaged all the time, and that there was some games where he felt he could have been more engaged and cared a little bit more, which is huge red flags for me. Because like, if you're playing in the NHL and you're supposed to be winning and you're not really always engaged, like, I can totally get that if other things are going on in your personal life. Like sometimes you need, some of your buddies on your team to kind of drag you into battles on occasion. Yeah. That I get. But to just come out and say that's good because you're taking ownership. But I wanted to really see, man, he looks engaged on every shift. Like he looks dynamite, and being in the Leaf Center, listening to radio talk all day, pretty much every day. The one topic I am not hearing is how much money Marner makes. Nobody's talking about that right now because he's scoring so much.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter because he's putting up the points, right? And Matthews isn't really yet. Kind of a little bit, but not still, really, right? So
shooting like a monster, 26 shots.
He is. But I mean, he's going to go through weeks where he gets 6, 7, 8 goals in a week, right? He could in fantasy, he'll win you a week just by himself.
So yeah, that's my top 3 stars of the season so far. I guess from this point on, it'll be of the week. So starting like tonight, Thursday till next week, we'll kind of keep who's popping off this week, right? So
Mm.
let me have it. Let me hear. Do you have any of the same?
I don't actually, but I realized I have a trend, and I also switched two things as you were talking there, because when you started talking about Vegas, I was like, oh, I overlooked this guy, and then you went to talk about somebody else, and I was like, well, I forgot about him,
I had a
and now I
debate.
got
So
to
like I didn't want to have two people from the same team. So like I'm like
okay.
Vegas had a great start. There's two players that I thought about, maybe three that I could even give it to on that
Who
team,
are
right?
they?
One of them is Max Pacioretty. He put up a hat trick like 2 nights ago too. Like he's I think 6 goals already. Another one is Theodore. Like he's leading the league in scoring goals for a defenseman. But that's just straight bias, so that's okay.
So I still have somebody else on top of
Maybe
that,
Fleury even, but like
and I was gonna say I'll give you one guess for a trend on what I'll have in my 3 stars.
goalies.
Yes. I have three goalies.
Oh my.
Originally, I had the two-headed monster in Edmonton, and I know that's kind of cheating saying two bodies, but they were doing well. But I mean, maybe we can talk about Edmonton quickly before we end the podcast, but
Yeah.
I'm worried about them. But I took them out because when you were talking about Vegas, I was like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna move my 3rd star to 2, take out the Twins from Edmonton, and add Fleury as my 3rd star. My 3rd star is Fleury because I believe he had no, he had one, not hat tricks, shutouts. He had one shutout, but he also let a goal in the last minute in another game,
Yeah,
last couple
he's been
minutes.
huge for
So
them, yeah.
he's been massive. I haven't watched a ton, but I've read some articles and heard that he's been playing some of his best hockey.
Yep.
And I mean, Leonard, just looking fantasy stats, his stats aren't very pretty.
No.
So I don't know how he actually looks, or if they've been unlucky or whatever. I can't really speak on that.
The most recent game
in
that they
terms
just
of
played
that,
against St. Louis, he got sniped a couple, like pretty much out
yeah, it
of
was
his
5-4, wasn't it?
yeah, in shootouts. So but 4 of the goals, like 3 of them were just like he had no chance.
I was watching the highlights, and there's one play that really set off alarms for me when I believe it was Ryan O'Reilly went behind the net with the puck. And it was a wraparound, but it wasn't quite a wraparound tight. It was kind of like a loose wraparound where he kind of just came out into the side slot a little bit, and he
Mhm.
threw it at the net blindly. But had he turned his head and looked, Leonard had a huge triangle open on the short side, and he's lucky because O'Reilly hit him in the chest. But there
That
was
is
there
where
was like
the one
15 pucks space worth.
weak goal went
Yeah,
short
and
side
then there's been
a
a couple
couple,
ones I've seen
yeah.
where it's like huge hole, and it's just like that can't happen. Like it can't happen, especially in that division where there's a lot of good shooters. That can't happen. So
Mm.
I figure if they had put all their eggs in the basket of Leonard and brought in somebody as a backup and moved on from Fleury, I think Vegas could be having a completely different conversation right now based on, we can't stop goals. Not saying Leonard's bad, but I'm just saying his start of the season hasn't
Yeah,
been the greatest. So like we
totally.
just could be talking about how they're scoring goals and they spent all this money on scoring goals, but now they can't defend and have similar conversations to like
Yeah.
what the Leaf fans have. So
I know where
that's why
one
I
of your
picked Fleury.
goalies is going. I'm interested where the third one is. I'm trying to think.
Who do you think you have?
Well, I know John Gibson's got to be one of them. Like he's been
Absolutely, he's
fucking
my
monster.
boy.
Yeah, exactly. Is
He's
he
my
number
boy.
2 or is?
It's number 2.
All
Yeah,
right.
he was the 3-star. I moved into 2 because I thought he was better than Fleury. Because quite honestly, without Gibson, Anaheim would be a mess.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Gibson has the most saves in the
Possible.
NHL. It's either 1 or 2 behind Hellebuck. I can't. No, sorry, he's 1 or 2 behind Koskinen because Oilers are playing Koskinen every game.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Koskinen, and then Gibson, and then Hellebuck. I think that's how it goes. So I mean, he's got 2 shutouts, I believe, and his
believe
goals
so, yeah.
against is under 1, and his save percentage is like 960 something, which is insane.
On a
Actually,
team like the Ducks. Yeah.
On the Ducks, right? He's ranked 6 in our fantasy league, but he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. He's only has 3 wins. He has 30 saves in all but 1. And he's got a 2 shutouts below 900, but then 940, 1,000 save, 910, 970. Like without him, I think Anaheim's only scored like 5 or 6 goals, and they have 3 wins. Like they're looking for offense, I know that much, but like without him, they'd be a mess.
That's very
And I think he's primed to have a really, really good year. Doesn't mean a lot for the Ducks. It could mean a lot for them if they choose to move on from him, which I would be hesitant to, just because of, 6.5 for like 5 more years. Like, why would you ever move off that?
They won't.
But if they're not ready, maybe you get a haul, because they would get a haul. Because all of a sudden, Gibson tears his knee, he's worth nothing. Right now,
Yeah.
he's a burden. But like, goalies are voodoo, so some people, I can see both sides of the story. I just don't know if I have the balls to make those trades all the time. So I would keep him if I was in that position. But yeah, he was my number 2. And my number 1 star.
Do-do-do-do.
Know who he is?
No.
Let me just double check, because I'm pretty sure he has 3 shutouts.
3 shutouts.
It was a waiver wire ad in our fantasy league.
What? Varlamov?
Yep.
Okay, well, don't look at today's game then.
I know he's losing. He's given up 5 goals. But before that, he had 2 shutouts. He'd only given up 4 goals. 2 of them which were power play goals.
Fair enough.
I mean, he only gave up two regulation 5-on-5 goals. So that's pretty good in 5 games for me. And I mean, that division's a bit of a mess. And I know they played Washington without Ovi. So like, there's some skew in there and whatnot, but
goalie city coming from you.
I didn't even really realize that, but
yeah.
I mean, I kind of did when I had 1 too, but once you mentioned Vegas and I was like, oh yeah, Fleury, and I kicked out the other one, I didn't really realize I was going with all goalies. That was not by design. But by now, people should also know that I'm a bit of a goalie lover, so maybe we probably will. If a goalie deserves to be in the stars, I probably will bring him there.
Yeah, I definitely, looking back, I probably could have changed my 3rd star to one of the goalies. I kind of forgot about goalies, believe that or not, huh? Weird. So it's crazy how we balance
this might
each
be
other.
A trend. You're a better, so you think about offense and scoring. I'm a hockey player. I think about defense and goalies and whatever. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but we definitely have like alternate perspectives. West Coast, East Coast, goalies, whatever. It's funny. Good stuff. Yeah. Anything else?
Just wanted to touch on the Oilers quick, and then we'll sign off.
Sounds
but like, I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you?
Like
one being like blow it up now, or 0 being like blow it up now, like we have to panic, and 10 being like it's all good.
Right in the middle. I'm gonna the biggest concern is definitely goal. Like they can't ride Koskinen. They're 1 injury away from him. Like they're done. So if they, I don't know how they address it. Like with what we were talking about, they have to do it through trade, but that's like one of those 14-day possible issues. I don't know how they address it.
They're already having that issue. They already have. This is the one thing I wanted to talk about, is that they recalled 2 goalies. One was Stuart Skinner. I believe they called him from Bakersfield or something like that. But then they also called a guy from like Latvia or something like that. But because of visa issues and COVID and whatever, they recalled them when what's his name got hurt. Smith got hurt. And they still don't have him. Wow. So like, my question is, what happens if all of a sudden it's like, okay, tomorrow this guy's active and the next day the other guy's active. Now all of a sudden you have 5 goalies activating on your roster in 24 hours. You're then going to have to send Latvia kid back to Latvia, send the AHL kid back to AHL. And it's like, thanks for coming. Now you have to go back in quarantine for another 14 days before you can do anything.
They had a story. They got to put on the NHL jersey.
They may not. They might have to just literally show up, be like, so we got a guy off waivers, or like, whatever. We have a guy who's better than you, or you're too young. We don't want to risk you, or whatever. But like, I'd put them at like a 3. Maybe a 4.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Right, like in the middle, but on the other side. I was gonna say 4. I'm just gonna quickly let this dog out. Get out of here.
Reason why I have them at like a 3.5, 4 is that it's Groundhog Day now. This is the 2nd or 3rd time around where it's the same thing, and like, yeah. GM is known to be a smart GM, but how did he and the coach's intelligence, if the coach didn't say, like, I need another goalie? Like, the fact that they came in with the 2 goalies, like, I'm not necessarily upset or, like, blaming the 2 goalies, but they should have gone out and brought in a third goalie to be like, this is what we got to do. We couldn't acquire an increase or like an improvement, but let's add somebody. So at least we have the three-headed monster. It will be a bit of a nightmare for 1 year, but at least we don't have to talk about goaltending all year.
Yeah,
that would have been my thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I'm concerned.
Honestly, I'm concerned about them, but I'm honestly more concerned in the north about Vancouver Canucks. Like
it's funny. I've changed on them. I'm less concerned.
They
think
basically got what the
starting slow.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully. But the Ottawa Senators might have been right what the doctor ordered for them. I think depending on how this next week goes, we can maybe touch on them a little bit more next week. But
I hope so. I think they'll get them going.
Yeah.
I think so. Like I was, I'm gonna butcher the stat because I wasn't really paying attention when they were talking about it. But they're basically the point of what they're trying to get across was out of all the offense production that the Canucks have had, how much of it and how much time, like pressure time in the offensive zone, are guys being paid like $4 million or more. So basically, like. Or guys to be paid. So it was like the Pettersson, the Bessers, the Horvats, whatever.
Yeah.
And basically it was like less than 20% of the total combined offenses come from their main guys.
Oh, okay.
So like if you're depending on your third and fourth liners and your fifth and sixth defensemen to provide more than 50% of your offense, you're not going to win a lot of games. But like their goaltendings have struggled. So you got to think that their goaltenders should get a bit better. There's a lot of new bodies. The team should get a bit better. I think they're running around a little bit to start. Toffoli's gone, Besser's back in. I have a little bit more confidence in them. I'd put it at like a 6.5 for them on that same scale. I think they'll be fine. I think they're on the right direction. I want to kind of just ignore what happened to them this first week, but it's hard to do that when you have very little points. They're now chasing, which is not going to be good for them. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
I'm gonna call a big win tonight for the Leafs.
All right.
5+ goals.
All right.
Do a quick prediction score for the Leaf game?
Who are they playing? Just
Edmonton tonight.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be 3-2. Leafs.
Regulation?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 5-3 Toronto.
All right.
With an empty netter.
Sounds good, man.
All right, man.
Take care. Have a good one.
Later. Yeah, you too. Cheers.